Hey there, folks. It's Tom, F. Dot. And another week in the books for the SPL. It's week number 5, which means we're halfway through at the exact point, halfway mark. With that, there comes a bye week, which is pretty sweet. I get to go to San Jose for the Cognitive Gaming Invitational, the Gears of Fate. I actually think the logo looks a lot like Final Fantasy, but it's the Gears of Fate tournament. It's in San Jose. It's going to be really dope. If you're in town, come on through. It's free. And, of course, it'll be on Smite Game. But that's next week. This is, it's supposed to be the reflection vlog or whatever the fuck. The after the fact vlog. And so, with week 5, it was interesting. Everybody was on deck and everybody was able to be here for the first time in a while. And the last time for a while. Bart's going to be at TwitchCon, so we'll brand in for when we come back. But in any event, this week we had all hands on deck, which was a lot of fun. Our mission going forward this week was really starting to nail pronunciation. So each week as commentators, in general, it's get better overall. But I always like to, there's like a specific bullet point that we like to hit. And this week was really pronunciation. So if you heard different pronunciations, for instance, now it's just on Chile. It's on Chile. There's a couple of different ways to pronounce that. But as a whole, we decided that everybody should be on the same page as far as pronunciation. So we're working on it. Some people still learning. It's zeros, not zeros. But the goal is, as a team, as a unit, to really just get better and tackle some of the more difficult to pronounce stuff. And this way, it could all be uniform. Doesn't necessarily have to be correct. For instance, Aegis is the wrong way to pronounce it. Aegis is the correct way, but everyone in the world says Aegis, so as long as we all say the same thing, that's really what matters. So we're going to keep saying Aegis and stuff like that. So that's really where we're at and trying as a unit to get better. One thing that I've been trying to get better with is conversationality. A lot of times what casting can seem like is, I have a point. No, I have a point, but let me say my point and then my point, and everybody just sort of waiting for the other person to talk so they can bring something up. And it's funny, sometimes that doesn't necessarily lead to a poor cast, but my personal favorites are always the ones that sound like a conversation. And while I don't think my cast with Adonis was the best cast I personally have ever done, I think that the interaction that Kevin and I have back and forth is a little more enjoyable. We actually have conversation. I'll bring up a point and lead him into it, right? As I said, a lot of times when you hear me ask a question on the broadcast, I know the fucking answer. In fact, if you ask a question that you don't know the answer to, that's where it gets a little scary. But a lot of times I'll ask Kevin a question and he'll answer and then I'll respond and we'll have a conversation off of that because, yeah, you know what? When there's a first blood, it's awesome, and when there's a fire giant and a gold fury and people are fighting over it, that's one thing. But a lot of the time, all right, everybody got their buffs, they're going a lane, junglers in their middle lane, wave clear, back left, wave clear, back right, wave clear, red buff. You know what I mean? It gets very secular. So you got to have something to talk about, and that's really where I like to have fun with the broadcast and sort of let it breathe. So I was really happy with what Kevin and I did. I think that I personally had a lot to work on. It wasn't my best cast by any stretch of the imagination, but I liked the change in feel, I guess you could say. The mechanics weren't all there, but the conversationality, I think, was a step in the right direction. We've sort of changed things around on the desk and put it into a better position for us to really work better together as a unit. Not just Kevin and I, but all the casters together. So I think that's working out pretty well. One of the bigger things that we did this week was Hi-Rez announced that regionals was changed. Instead of the top 4, which is half of the league, it's the top 6 teams from each region, which is the top 3/4, which I think, it is important. And I want to say that this was not in response to anything that was going on. That before the disconnect issues, this was a topic of conversation. Now, maybe it got a little more electrified as the season went on, but this was something we were thinking about for a while. And I think this is one of the bigger differences between esports and traditional sports. Non-LAN environment esports and traditional sports. If you have a LAN like the LCS, well, then this is irrelevant. But the majority of esports leagues don't have a LAN system, and it's all played online. And so what I think is, for traditional sports, it makes a lot of sense. Regular season to feed right into the playoffs, and half or even less than that get to go to the playoffs, and it's all or nothing, live or die. When it comes to esports, online is such a different beast than LAN. even the pros, right? Even the pros when they're playing at home. I mean, something like the toaster oven can go on fire, or the mailman can come, or the gas meter guy rings the doorbell while you're fighting over fire giant. You know, some teams live together, some teams don't at all. Some teams have never met each other in person. Shouts to cognitive gaming. You know, you've got ping differences for some teams, and this, that, and a third. So some people have dope computers brought to you by their latest sponsor, and the other people are just at a Challengers working with their mom's Dell that she uses for the PTA, and that can create an uneven playing field, which I think is totally. I think now I'm like pushing uneven, right? I think for the regular season it's totally fine. I mean, that's, you know, it's your job to create as little as distractions as possible, and teams do that, etc. And it's essentially good enough for online. But when it comes to seeing who's going to go to the World Championships, that's really when I want to see LAN environment, blinders on, no holds bar action, just the game. You know, when you're at LAN, your little brother can't fall down the stairs, or your dog can't run out of the front door, which is something that even the most serious people, like, that shit just happens because you're at home. You're not at an office devoted to playing Smite or whatever game you're playing. So, I think that regional championships in online leagues is different than traditional sports or LAN leagues, in the sense that it's not just a straight playoffs, because it's the playoffs plus some. So I think it makes sense to include a little more than if the regular season was on LAN. Now, this is interesting because if you guys know me, you guys know that I really want the regular season to matter. And ask your favorite SPL player. It totally matters. The difference between $20,000 of shame being on the bottom of the league and a whole lot more being on top of the league. The money actually matters right now, which is usually a negative, but it's a positive right here. But also, seeding is very important. Don't forget, the number 1 and 2 seeds get a bye, which, just because AFK didn't use it, just because they lost anyway, doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I saw some people online saying that it's bad to have a bye and they would start throwing games. You're high. It's less games you have to win. A bye is super good. Period. Like, objectively, a bye is good. You want to talk about not being hot or not being warmed up, you can play games on your own. Play scrims beforehand. You don't have to not play Smite. You get a bye, you don't have to play the first round of competition. That doesn't mean you can't play Smite. So, I don't buy it. Buys are important, and regular season is important. In a perfect world, the regular season is played on LAN, and it means everything, but we're not on LAN. And I would like best to evaluate the teams on LAN, because that's even competition, even field. And so, in that sense, the regular season means a lot because it feeds seeding into the LAN, and the LAN is more than a playoffs. It's a true test of the skill, right? If you're playing online, if you are the bottom 2 teams in the league, it's basically a margin for error, essentially. The online league has so many variables that it is determinant of player skill, but sometimes these variables can mix up, you know, the 3rd and the 4th seed, or maybe one team is better than the other, but just had some unfortunate circumstances, week, right? Well, this way, if you're absolutely the 7th and 8th seed, look, there's probably no excuse. That's not a one-time thing. I was eating during the game and spilled soup on myself, so I fed into the fire giant. That's like, we can't win over 10 weeks. That's that, right? So, the top 6, I want to see y'all play at LAN. So I'm really excited about the Super Regionals, and I'm amped as hell. So, there's more to it than just what people think out there, and like I said, I think it's a little more deep than some people might give it credit for and everything. As far as the event itself, it's going to be at Hi-Rez. I saw some people complaining that there wasn't any EU lands, and I feel for you. I really do. I understand that. Unfortunately, just like the money is a real thing, and while I definitely don't work with Hi-Rez money, I'm not anywhere near any of those figures. One would imagine that is more difficult to really work out over there. Plus, we have this baller studio. It's cool to have everybody in the same building, because now the international questions get to be asked. And then, of course, the biggest thing is the wild card match, which I'm really hyped about. Number 1 and number 2 will go to Worlds from both North America and Europe. So the teams that make it to the finals both go to Worlds, period. The teams that just miss out, the 3rd place teams, they're going to fight against each other. If you had a European LAN and a North American LAN, you wouldn't be able to get them to fight, and that just wouldn't work. Having everybody in the same spot, well, now the third place spots can go head to head and see who comes out on top. The winner, of course, will wind up getting a bid into the world championships. So you'll have 2 from North America, 2 from Europe, and then the third place teams from each region will fight, and that winds up with 5 spots for NA and EU. The other 5 come from around the world: China, Brazil, Latin America, Oceania, etc. So you've got a lot of different stuff going on there as well. Worlds is coming. Regionals is first. I'm going to San Jose. I'm really excited. I've been looking forward to the trip for a long time. I've got some friends over there, and the Bay Area is one of my favorite spots in the world. It's always hoodie weather. I'm hyped because it's hoodie weather here in Atlanta. So, you know, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go take a walk, guys. I'm going to go put on my hoodie and feel good about it. Thanks a lot for watching. I appreciate it. Leave me a like or a comment down below if you want to hear something different or want me to just shut the hell up. Let me know. I appreciate you watching, and I'll catch you next week. We'll talk to you all about the COG Invitational. Make sure to tune in this weekend. It's my game as usual. And I'll see you then, earlier or later. Whatever. Peace.